people show up to these open houses and they're like, "Hey, are you the listing agent?" I'm like, "Yes." And they're like, "You put that big old Caltrans sign out on the street?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then they want that same service.
Hello and welcome to episode 107 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are joined by Alex Hollander out of Santa Clarita, California. Just 1 year into his real estate career, Alex is already a top producer at his brokerage. Drawing on both the new and old school methods of marketing, Alex shares how he has been able to find such quick success, from going all out on open houses and cold calling every day to creating memorable content and throwing community events. Alex is not holding anything back to grow his business. Now, before we get on to the day's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. Also, if you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to the day's featured interview with Alex Hollander. As we approach Halloween, he shares why he thinks it's a perfect time to bring in new business and shares how he is going about it. Yeah, so really just kind of getting started out, if you could introduce yourself to us a little bit, where you are in the country and how long you've been in real estate.
Okay. Hey, my name's Alex Hollander. I'm a realtor out in Santa Clarita, which is like a suburb about 20 minutes north of Los Angeles. Not one of the typical like LA realtors, we're not all fancy and we're not all luxury, but I'm in a suburb. So it's a cool little pocket that I'm in. I've been practicing real estate about a year now. So technically I'm a rookie agent, but I am a top producing agent at my brokerage. I try to kind of do some of the old school stuff and the new school stuff and put them together and, do what I can to make some money.
Yeah. So what were you doing prior to getting into real estate?
Yeah, well, I was a pastor of a church for about 4 years. I started as a youth pastor and then moved into kind of an associate position, which is basically kind of like the right-hand man of the top pastor. So I worked there for 4 years, and during COVID, the church really slowed down. Several of the staff got laid off, myself included. So I jumped into real estate. But before that, I was in property management. I was the ops manager for a large property management company. So ministry and then property management kind of goes hand in hand with real estate, I think. Definitely a people business, and it worked out for me so far.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously the, with the church, the people skills is definitely there. Right.
It's funny though, because probably nobody from my church congregation at the time has been a client of mine. So, I just haven't converted any of them into utilizing me as a realtor yet.
Right. Okay. So tell me about how, obviously you've been in, a year rookie, but top producer. What were you doing? What have you been doing to make a name for yourself?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say I have a name for myself just yet. I take opportunities like this and see if, I can utilize them for my own content creation, and also to kind of push, because once you decide to post this, then I can utilize that as well. So I do take a lot of newer school style thoughts and ideas, and I definitely will try to apply those. And then I'm a proponent of the old school stuff too. A lot of these like 20, 30-year agents are all about prospecting. They're all about door knocking, and I like that too. Most of my business comes from geographical farming and door knocking.
Right. So how do you, I'll touch on the geo farming in a moment, but, you're talking about the content and, kind of those more like new school thoughts of ways. I'm assuming that's more of the content marketing and just kind of getting your name and like kind of building up your market expertise that way.
Yeah. Like I'll talk about my brokerage, for example. Where I'm at, I don't see a lot of the agents in my company utilizing social media really at all. I mean, if they are, it's some generic, just sold, just listed posts, which are fine. It's great to do those things. It does let the people around you know that you're an active agent, and those people need to know that. But outside of that, there's no real lead generation coming from anything they're posting on social media. So I definitely will run targeted ads for listings that I have. It's not just self-promotion. It's trying to get people to the doors of my open houses and of the listings that I have. We just kind of started venturing into YouTube shorts and TikTok stuff. Not a big TikToker, but I just take the content that I have from Instagram and I'll throw it on my TikTok, change the music, and kind of see what happens with that. But for the most part, Facebook and Instagram are huge lead generation platforms if used correctly, and just trying to have good content where people, at the end of the day, the people around you have to know that you do what you do in order for them to recognize you and want to use you. My first 6-7 months of doing real estate, like I said, the people that I know from my congregation or just people in real life, they wouldn't give me any business because they knew I was a rookie. But it wasn't until they started seeing business happening and me pushing it, like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, that they started calling me and reaching out to me.
Right. I think that's really important to, for newer agents, especially to show your success when you get it, to promote yourself as a successful agent, so that those people that have known you your whole life or a few years, see you as the trusted agent.
Yeah. The hardest person to convince that you're a good real estate agent is your friends and family, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. What, so, outside of the content marketing and things like that, I really like the idea of, running ads specifically for your listings and almost like creating those events to your open houses.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the concept of the super open house?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So in my area, no one does this. And really, I think they're going to start doing it. But in the last 4 months, I haven't seen anyone do the things that I do because I feel like a lot of listing agents got really lazy. I mean, we were able to sell homes, 3-4 months ago for $100K over ask with no sign in the front yard, no open house. The game's changed slightly over the past month and a half, 2 months. But when I started actually taking listings, I absolutely have brokers opens that first week. I absolutely go big with the open houses. I've even rented out those Caltrans freeway signs, the big LED, massive, I rent a couple of those out and put open house on them, put them in the streets and so those are my open house signs. You know what I mean? I utilize those for that. So I do things like that, kind of outside of the box marketing for my listings. And that generates me more business because people show up to these open houses and they're like, hey, are you the listing agent? I'm like, yes. And they're like, you put that big old Caltrans sign out on the street? And I'm like, yeah. And then they want that same service. So I get a lot of kind of avalanched clients from people who just come to the open houses.
Yeah, I definitely think anybody, anytime you're holding an open house, it's got to be part of the reason for holding it is that lead generation source.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I love the idea of the big road sign. I mean, I personally have never seen that done, and it would definitely stick in my mind and make me want to check it out.
I guarantee you in the next couple months, and at least in my community, people are going to start copying. I notice a lot of people steal or copy ideas, and I'm fine with that. It's all about creating that creative flow of things,
Yeah. It's something interesting, you touched on is that, over the past couple months, things have definitely changed, and how a few months ago, listing agents, you could almost do nothing and you'd get an over asking price. And in some cases, before the listing really ever got put on the MLS, I mean, it was so fast. In our area here in Florida, it was going crazy. Mm-hmm. How did you, as a new agent, understand that that's not going to last forever and you got to think ahead?
Yeah, I listen to my peers. I listen to my coaches, and I know what goes up must come down, right? And I felt like I needed to, over the last year, I needed to develop my own skill and not be lazy, because I just knew it wasn't going to always sustain itself that way. And now you've seen listing agents leave, they're not generating as much business as they used to. They're freaking out. They're reducing prices drastically. A house that sold for $850K, 2 months ago is now listed for $550. And you're like, whoa, that's, that is a overreaction, I think, and it kind of throws things off balance a little bit. But anyway, I realized early on that things were already kind of not balanced, and eventually it would be balanced. So I figured I might as well craft my skills while I'm learning. And then just do everything well. I want to be the best in my field. And the only way to do that is to not be lazy.
Right. Well, and it also gives you that opportunity to stand out when everybody else isn't doing the mega open houses. And, like you have a name for you, like you're building your name for yourself as that guy that's doing that when nobody else was.
Right, right.
That's
And that's
awesome.
that's key, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of switching gears a little bit to the geographic farming and bringing in leads that way. What are some of the things that you do to really kind of hone in on the areas that you want to farm?
Have you heard of the hunt and kill method?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's me all day when I have a listing. When I take a listing, I first of all have my own geographic farm that I have planted myself in since I started. There's a elementary school, and I just kind of circle that elementary school consistently, and I make sure everybody there knows my name. It started out with a pumpkin patch last October. I went to Trader Joe's and I bought 250 pumpkins. I put them in my front yard. I live in that farm.
Mm-hmm.
And I put flyers out, called every single home in that neighborhood, and invited them to come get a free pumpkin. The catch was I needed their contact info. I had most of their contact info, but it was just a good opportunity for me to recall them and say, hey, thanks for coming by. So that's kind of how it all started. And then I consistently would flyer drop, consistently call, consistently door knock those same people over and over and over again, so that when they actually started thinking about maybe possibly listing their home, once I got that first call, that's all I needed. Because once I got that first listing, then it was like hit the neighborhood again and say, hey, I just took this listing at this price. If you're interested in knowing what your home is worth, call me. And at that time, homes were way overpriced. So people are seeing these, homes that are extremely high, and they're like, I want that too. Kind of snowballed from there.
Right. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea of hosting the pumpkin patch in your own yard also. I mean, I think it's just it's those little things that I think go a long way in sticking in people's mind.
Yeah. Dude, Halloween is the best time. Because
Oh yeah.
not okay, you could do the pumpkin patch idea, that's fine. Cost some money to do that. But what other time do you have people physically knocking on your door? Like coming to you. You're not door knocking them, they're door knocking you technically. So what I did is I bought like maybe 250 king size Hershey bars, went to my office's printer, got permission, color photocopied like these graphics, had my kids cut them out to size, wrap and tape them. So now I'm handing out these Hershey bars to these kids with my contact info, my funny little photo of me in a Halloween costume. And these kids are taking it home, and I don't know. I can't really track if anybody called me off of those, but it's just kind of brand recognition for my neighborhood. And, so I love Halloween. It's great.
Yeah, no, definitely Halloween is a great time for agents to really kind of get some of their materials out there without having to go out and do it yourself.
Right. Yeah. And be creative about it. Don't just,
Yeah.
I just feel like there's so many cool things you could do. A little bit of money, a little bit of elbow grease, you can do a lot.
Right. And I think a lot of what you're doing also, like, just hosting the community events and doing these kind of things, it kind of goes back to that, really treating your leads and potential clients as just real people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I one of the things that I have on everything that I do, if you go to my Instagram, you'll see it on there, is people over profit. I kind of stole that from a ministry thing. But at the end of the day, I want to help my people. I want to help the people around me that I'm serving. And I see this job as a service-based job. I'm not, my clients hired me to help them, not to give me as much money as I can. So that's not to say I'm taking discount listings or I'm kicking money back to people. That's not what people over profit means. It just means that, like, at the end of the day, I want to serve them as best as I can. Even if that means I have to lose out on certain things. So I'll pay for the cleaning. I'll pay for the, do little things to make sure that the transaction and that my client's experience is above and beyond,
Right. Yeah, definitely. When, as you're getting into the industry and things like that, I'd imagine that, you were really kind of seeking out, maybe not necessarily like a mentor or a coach in the sense of like a physical person talking to you, but like maybe some books or different, industry leaders. Who were some of those people that you really kind of gravitated to?
Okay. So given that I have a ministry background, as a pastor, people would come to me for guidance about certain things, right? It's mostly life things. It's, faith-based things. But I knew early on that because you said a coach, maybe a mentor, maybe not necessarily that. No, it definitely is that. Like you should have a coach for I have a social media coach. Like I literally hire a guy to make sure I'm held accountable on what I'm posting, how often I'm posting, and not just posting it, but tracking engagement to make sure that I'm not wasting time posting nonsense, right? And then I have for my whole first year, I had a set of coaches that were just like my real estate coaches. They were great, but it was more like a digital thing. So this year, I ended up getting an in-person real estate coach who kind of also does the same thing, accountability tracking. So I do think for everything you're doing, whether it's working out or it's your career, you should have somebody that coaches you, that mentors you, that kind of shows you certain ways to do things. And you can choose if you want to use them or not. You can try them out, try things out. But definitely for sure, I have coaches and I utilize the coaches and I listen to what they say. I don't know everything. I'm wrong about a lot of things. But when I don't know something, I go to my coaches to kind of see what they think and they give me their input. Do you watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So I always I'm late to the party. Like I just started watching Game of Thrones like a month ago. My wife and I are binge watching it, and it's just like the King's Council. Like, you know, you can be a terrible king, like terrible at what you do, but if you got good people around you advising you well, you'll be all right.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also, a lot of it comes down to that accountability. Like how many people, if you look at the percentages of people that are successful in their fitness programs, the people that just go to the gym on their own versus the ones that have signed up for, an actual personal trainer that's going to be there and work you, there's that guilt factor in not doing what that trainer has asked you to do.
True. Yeah, very true. Absolutely.
Yeah. What, so as you're kind of going into your second year, what are your big plans, for kind of scaling and getting bigger?
Yeah, I worked on my 2023 plan this month. So I do know going into this for all agents, going into this quarter Q4, the game plan is to have momentum going into Q1. So just kind of ramping up on a lot of stuff. I really tightened my social media content, started doing a lot more video content, batch creating, doing things like that to kind of knock it all out for the month and then just have tons of stuff that I can post so I don't have to spend too much time on that. I have set prospecting hours where I make sure that I'm consistently either if I'm doing phone calls or if I'm doing door knocking, whatever it is that I'm doing traditional prospecting, I have a set 2 hours every single day where I do that 5 days a week. That's super consistent no matter how busy I get. My mentor is like, no matter what happens, no matter if you have 14 escrows going on, you got to set aside 2 hours every day to at least prospect, right? That's key. So I got that. But going into next year, I do plan on doubling not only production, but my income. And I do plan on doing that through a lot of the social media advertising. I just signed a contract with a massive, it's weird. It's an Instagram page that kind of is pretty big out in my community. So they host events, they do community news, but everybody where I live knows this company or this Instagram page. So they reached out to me, we signed a contract, and I'm going to be their exclusive realtor. So any lead that comes in, any kind of information. So basically my face is going to be plastered all over Santa Clarita. And then on top of that, I just also signed up and got approved with a territory through Redfin. So this isn't a Redfin plug by any means. They don't pay me, but I'm a Redfin referred agent now, which is, so in my neighborhood, I just plan on really saturating Alex Hollander all throughout Santa Clarita. I want to be associated as the realtor, the go-to realtor out there.
Right. Yeah. And I think, doing things like with that Instagram page, that just, even if that's not necessarily something that is available to an agent in their market, reaching out to the local, in our area, we have like a little local newspaper. If you really reach out to them and just, hey, look, I can provide you the real estate updates every month or whatever your publications is. Just getting your face out there as that market expert is really key. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily take the time to look for those opportunities.
Yeah, it's key. It's important. You can make those conversations, but I mean, if we're being completely transparent, money definitely talks, right? So a lot of the things that if you're an agent, if you're listening to this podcast, like one of the things that they're going to have to do, that I have to do, is sometimes I have to put a little money behind whatever campaign I'm trying to work. It's important. No one does things for free anymore. So you got to, like, going into 2023, it's September 2022 right now. I budgeted out what I'm going to be spending monthly in 2023, including marketing. And I'm not talking listing photos and, that kind of stuff. Like, this is a business. We have to treat it that way. And we have to make sure we know what we're spending. We have to make sure we're not overspending. We have to make sure we put money aside for taxes. There's so many things that you have to do to be successful. It's not just prospecting, being the best agent. You got to kind of prepare your business. And that's one of the things that I learned this year, and I'm going to implement in 2023 as well. I say that to say, you can reach out to the newspaper, but they're going to ask you for a check. As
you are kind of setting yourself up for next year and thinking about this marketing, is there a set goal of of this year's income that you want to turn into your marketing dollars?
No. What I do, I don't break it down by year. I break it down by month. So I looked at what I spent in July of last year, what I spent, and I go month by month, and I kind of see based on seasonality, based on the holidays, based on whatever event I threw, community event, like the pumpkin patch idea, for instance. Obviously October I spend a little more, December I spend a little more, and those are down months in real estate. But just, I see what I spent last year, and I saw kind of where I peaked in terms of income and where I dropped in terms of income. And I've kind of just laid that all out. I'll, even in other careers that I've had, I always look at the year to year, because I think that's where you're going to see your trends, and you're going to see, what you spend. And every career I've ever had, even in ministry, you got a budget, right? And then hopefully at the end of I don't know if you've ever watched The Office, but hopefully, by the end of the year, you have a surplus and you can spend it on a new copy machine or some new chairs or something, So that's the whole point, is like, know what you're spending, give yourself a cap so you're not overextending. It also allows you to not jump into things. So like, if you only have $10,000 for that month in marketing, that's a high amount. That's nowhere near what I spend, but I'm just saying, for those high-end producers in Florida, let's say you have 10K that you spend monthly in marketing, and then an opportunity comes along where it's going to cost you, 15K to do this thing. If you're disciplined, you know what, that's not part of my plan, right? And you kind of make your decisions that way. So that's how I look at it, at least.
Yeah, no, it's definitely cool. And I think, just by talking to you, definitely, I can understand why you're a top producer in such a short period of time with your team.
Well, it's life experience, right? Or like career experience. I don't know what you would call it, but you don't just walk into this and, I'm going to sell homes. No, like, you got to have a plan. It took me about 6 months to kind of really formulate everything. And I knew coming in, okay, I got to make sure, how do I get to that spot? And I would emulate people. The top producing guy at my brokerage at the time, I was like, hey, can I follow you for a day? Stuff like that is just like important. You just learn what they're doing and replicate it, make it better.
Yeah. Awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
I appreciate you having me.
I want to thank Alex for joining us today. I really enjoyed our conversation and hope you did as well. I've also added a link to his Instagram page in the episode description so you can check out more of what he's doing. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or a tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.